It is time for the San Francisco 49ers to cut the final 53-man roster. And as we were getting ready to get on here, we've got some things that are going to shake up the roster that I put together already. Lots of injuries just were announced via a Kyle Shanahan press conference. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about those. And then it's going to be a perfect transition into our final 53-man roster projection because there are multiple injuries that could have a big time impact on what the San Francisco 49ers ultimately do in regards to building out this roster. Boy, oh boy. Never a dull moment in San Francisco 49ers land. If you're a 49er fan, you know this. This is nothing new. So you already know what to do. Drop an SDS in the chat. Smash that like button. We got some stuff to talk about. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. What's good, gang? Shout out to the SDS. Boy, do we need each other more than ever. The this has been it's such a wild off season to me. Um Again, maybe it's because I'm in the thick of it. I'm in the middle of it. I'm talking about it every single day. We're doing lives. Engaging with fans every single day. So maybe I'm just oversaturated by it all. But boy, this has been a fun offseason. So again, this is a 53-man roster projection show, but it's going to quickly turn into the injury show because the San Francisco 49ers just announced like 10 different injuries. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about it all. We're going to, the crazy part about these injuries is that they are going to have an impact on the final roster build out that I just did. So this is going to be, I'm going to still do it, and I'm going to make some real time adjustments. But my goodness, we got some stuff to talk about here. All right. So let's get into some of the injuries. We're gonna we'll go through the injuries, and then we'll transition that into how it impacts the final 53, and we'll go from there. All right. So let's get into it. The first major injury that we have right now is it is going to be this might have a legitimate impact on what the 49ers do from a roster perspective standpoint. So it was announced today via Kyle Shanahan. I think this was passed on by Matt Maiocco on their morning after conference call. Cameron Latu has suffered a meniscus injury that will require surgery. So, what does that mean? If you're unfamiliar with the IR rules, I will explain them to you. If you are placed on injured reserve prior to week 1, your season is over. There's no coming back. If you see any of these players get placed on IR before week 1, that means they are shelved for the entire season. The only way they could come off IR is if they get waived with an injury settlement. So this is what we are now up against right now with Cameron Latu, who is going to require surgery, and I would assume would keep him out for a couple weeks, maybe a month or so. I don't know. We're still kind of TBD with the timeline. But this is where it creates a logjam where if he's going to be out for multiple weeks, this is now the issue. If the San Francisco 49ers want Cameron Latu to play this season, they can't put him on IR. So what they would have to do is they would have to put him on the final 53 and then put him on IR right afterwards because then he's eligible to return after 4 weeks. So, that is the big decision that we have pending. Now, obviously, if they put him on IR, Chadwick says it right here, it becomes basically a redshirt year. So, do the 49ers feel comfortable enough to one, put him on the active, then drop him on the injured reserve? It's funny. I see Jason just posting about it right now. Jason dropped the tinfoil hat theory that the 49ers, that Cameron Latu might pop up with a mysterious injury. And that would be the basically justification for giving him a redshirt year. So Aponte, we did State of the Franchise yesterday. Aponte brought that up yesterday. And here we are with the whole injury thing. So it's going to be very fascinating to see what the San Francisco 49ers do in regards to managing this. Do they place him on IR now, giving him a redshirt year, or do they put him on the active, then slap him with the IR tag, and he'll be eligible to return after 4 weeks? Talanoa Hufanga suffered. I guess you could say it's an injury. I don't know if this is considered an injury from a contact situation or what, but Matt Mayoko put out that safety Talanoa Hufanga has been out a few days with a Baker cyst. I've never heard of this term before, but he goes on to say a Baker cyst is a fluid-filled growth behind the knee. So this doesn't sound too serious. This seems like something that will he'll probably be able to be ready week 1, but again, it's just another thing to add to the list of 49ers injuries and stuff like that. We also have additional injuries to Jordan Mason, who's day to day with a foot. We have Chris Conley, who's day to day with a shoulder. It's basically an AC sprain after he caught that deep ball from Darnold down the right sideline. We got AJ Parker, who's going to miss a few weeks with the hamstring. Taylor Hawkins broke his hand, so he will likely be an IR candidate. So that's a guy that we'll probably see go on IR ending his year. He's probably bound for the practice squad anyways. And this next one becomes the biggest issue right now outside of Nick Bosa not being here. What is going on with the kicker situation? Jake Moody and Zane Gonzalez might both miss week 1. Not only do we have one kicker that's injured, we have 2 kickers that are injured. That feels unprecedented. That feels like unprecedented territory. Like this is so on brand for the San Francisco 49ers to have not only one kicker, 2 kickers, and both are hurt. And our punter can't kick a field goal to save his life. So what does that mean? Are they going to cut Zane or put Zane on IR? Are they going to put Moody on the final 53, then put Moody on IR so they could sign another kicker? What? Everyone's saying call Robbie. At this point, call Robbie. I don't know what else to do, man. Like this is becoming a very interesting situation. So, are we going to get a couple rookie red shirts? Basically through medical? Like, could you imagine the 3rd round draft picks of Jake Moody and Cameron Latu being shelved for the entire year with a injured, basically being placed on injured reserve. That would be crazy. So the 49ers have some decisions to make. Already building out this final 53 was hard enough. There's a lot of good players that I didn't want to have to cut. And so it's already hard enough, but the fact that you have multiple guys who would likely make the roster dealing with early injuries that you have to replace, crazy. So I don't even know. Like, I don't even know. Like, so if, let's get into our roster, 53-man roster projection. And let's say we start with special teams and we go to defense and we move to offense. If we're starting with special teams, we already have a question mark. Obviously, I was going to have Jake Moody, Mitch Wishnowsky, and Tabor Pepper. So far, the only two locks that we have for special teams are Mitch Wishnowsky and Tabor Pepper. Jake Moody is dangerously close to being placed on IR before the season. Because if they call Robbie and Robbie's like, I'm only coming back if you let me kick for the whole year, what do you think the 49ers do in that scenario? Think of it like when the 49ers hedged and they brought back Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Trey Lance was going in to be the starter. They hedged. They brought back Jimmy Garoppolo. Could they hedge with Jake Moody? Because I don't think anyone really feels super comfortable with how Jake Moody has been kicking so far in preseason. He's looked great in practice, but when the lights come on, he's a little shaky, to say the least. So, and now he's injured. So does Kyle make the call? Because I don't see Robbie Gould coming back for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Could we see that happen? Could we see them put Jake Moody on IR, bring back Robbie Gould? Oh boy. So that's a question. I can't even answer. If I'm going to project it out, like, again, I'm already stumped, and we're only on special teams. We're just starting our 53-man roster projection. I'm already stumped on special teams. I don't know what they're going to do with the kicker. That's wild. I don't know what they're going to do with the kicker. So barring that scenario where they put Jake Moody on IR and they bring in Robbie Gould to kick for the year, I would imagine that they're going to, at minimum, Jake Moody's going to make the roster, and then they're going to place him on short-term IR to open up a roster spot to be able to bring in another kicker to be available for week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, they keep saying Jake Moody might miss week 1. It's not a foregone conclusion that he will miss week 1. They just keep saying he might. And based on how he's trending right now, listen, like, normally I would just be like, ride with the rookie. You drafted him. You got to ride with him. I am open to the idea of placing Jake Moody on IR right now and bringing in Robbie Gould for the entire year. I can't even believe I'm saying it, but it creates such a log jam at special teams, and you have 2 kickers on the roster, and you might not be able to use any of them. That's crazy. That's crazy. So the 53-man roster projection is off to a hot start. Question mark next to special teams. We don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I would assume they're going. So this is going to be my Kyle Shanahan 53-man roster. Kyle's going to, I think Kyle would keep Jake Moody on the active, and barring a setback, they're going to push for him to be ready for week 1. If he's not ready for week 1, then at that point, they will be able to put him on injured reserve, and they will go to plan F on kicker already before week 1 has even started. Michael says CMC throws, runs, and receives. Might as well kick too. I guarantee you CMC could kick too. Probably a lot better than Mitch Wishnowsky. I'm not gonna lie. Like I enjoy ribbing Mitch Wishnowsky for this. I'm fine with Mitch Wishnowsky. I got no problems with Mitch. He's a fine punter. But I love ribbing Mitch Wishnowsky for this. For a guy who kicks a ball for a living, he cannot kick a field goal to save his life. And I find that hilarious. I don't know why it's so ironic to me, but what does Mitch do all day at practice? He kicks footballs. But he can't kick a field goal in spot duty as an emergency kicker. I would imagine he would be, if he was the spot duty emergency kicker, I would imagine he at least practices it every once in a while. But that's crazy to me. Tabor Pepper, can you kick? Hey, we got to ask Tabor if he can kick. Tabor, can you kick? Man. All right. So already starting off, just major questions with what they're going to do with the kicker situation. I don't know what they're going to do. So there's multiple options, like I've stated, but that's TBD, and I have no idea what they're going to do. If I had to make a decision, I would say Jake Moody makes it to the 53. Then you place him on IR if he can't go week 1. Sign a kicker to kick for 4 weeks, and that's how you rock and roll. So you rock and roll with the replacement kicker for the first 4 weeks. But what if the replacement kicker is making all his kicks? What if the replacement kicker is doing a good job? Do you cut him still in favor of Jake Moody? Oh man, my head hurts that we're talking about kickers like this. Pissed off brother says traded for a kicker and drafted one in the 3rd. Now we have 0. Literally the only thing that I can do right now is just laugh. It's just laugh. Try to find the joy in the comedy in the situation, because if you take it too serious, this team will drive you absolutely insane. So I'm just gonna laugh. I'm gonna laugh through it, and we're gonna wait and see. So I don't even have a good. We're stumped on kicker, bro. We haven't even started our 53. We're stumped on special teams. Boy, this is going to be a really good final 53-man roster projection. I can feel it. So getting to the safeties, I think this one's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think there's too much guesswork that goes into this. It's going to be Hufanga, Gibson, Jair Brown, and George Odom. George Odom is a phenomenal special teamer. He's an all-pro special teamer. One of the big reasons why they brought him in. So I think they keep 4, and those are your 4. Taylor Hawkins goes to IR. Miles Hartsfield probably will be a practice squad guy. Quantrez Knight is going to be very interesting. I don't think Quantrez Knight has done enough to beat out a guy like George Odom, but I really like Quantrez Knight. Gould or whomever the Chargers cut, BW. Are you talking about Dicker the kicker and Hopkins? Grab one of those guys. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they do at kicker. I don't have a good answer, unfortunately. Because my mind just goes back to Robbie Gould. All right, let's get to cornerback. So this is going to be an interesting one. What do I think that the 49ers do here in this scenario. Obviously, Charvarius Ward and Diamador Lenore are roster locks. I think Samuel Womack is a roster lock as well. I think, man, see, this is where it gets tough because you have Isaiah Oliver, Ambry Thomas. Ambry Thomas has had a better preseason than in years past. So it's going to be interesting to see how the 49ers view him. Again, he was a third-round draft pick. So I think there's some of that built into it. He's an investment that they want to see pan out. So I have Ambry Thomas making the roster. He was firmly on the bubble for me. And I thought I was going to be cutting Ambry Thomas when it came to this point. But I do think Ambry's done enough to at least solidify a spot. So I got Ambry making it. So that's 4. I only have 5 cornerbacks. And the reason why I only have 5 cornerbacks is because there's a log jam at another position. So the thing is, the 49ers have Darrell Luter Jr. Darrell Luter Jr., they can keep on PUP and he will not count against the active roster. When they decide to activate Darrell Luter Jr., the 5th-round draft pick cornerback, then he will count against the final 53. So, as a result, the San Francisco 49ers get a little bit of an out with Darrell Luter because they can just keep him on PUP and they can activate him at any time. So he won't count against these 5, but he will eventually count against those 5. So Darrell Luter is safe for now. And then when it comes to the remaining cornerbacks, is it Deshaun Jameson? Is it Isaiah Oliver? Is it, we know AJ Parker is hurt. Trey Swilling, I don't think is going to make it. So it really comes down to Qwuantrezz Knight, Isaiah Oliver, and Deshaun Jameson. So the 49ers have a very interesting decision to make between those 3 guys. Qwuantrezz Knight was at the back of the depth chart, but he is one of those guys that comes in and just makes plays. So I don't know why he's at the back of the depth chart. He was behind guys like Taylor Hawkins. I thought Qwuantrezz should have been ahead of Taylor Hawkins. I would have Qwuantrezz Knight as like he's like a weird, he could play nickel, he can play safety, he can play special teams. So Qwuantrezz Knight has some value to me, and I really do like Qwuantrezz. So if it was my 53-man roster, I would be having Qwuantrezz make it, even over Deshaun Jameson. I've liked what I've seen from Deshaun Jameson, but I haven't seen enough. I haven't seen enough of Deshaun Jameson to make me feel super comfortable with him making a roster spot. I feel like he would be a guy you can get back onto the practice squad. He hasn't done enough for me as a returner. He's looked good in spots in coverage, but there's still more to be desired for me for Deshaun Jameson after watching him in the last 2 preseason games. I haven't watched the tape back of this one. It's not disrespect. It's just an evaluation. I haven't really seen enough, and I personally like what Qwuantrezz Knight has brought to the table more so than Jameson at this point. But if it were Kyle, I wouldn't be surprised if Deshaun makes it over Qwuantrezz, over Isaiah Oliver. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they put Isaiah Oliver on the final 53 as well. So it is going to be very fascinating to see what they do here. But again, Luter's going to be on PUP, so he won't count. I got Ward, Lenore, Womack, Ambry Thomas. I feel really comfortable about that. And then it's who's going to be that last guy: Isaiah Oliver, Qwuantrezz Knight, or Deshaun Jameson. I kind of like Qwuantrezz Knight because he can play safety, he can play nickel, he can play nickel linebacker and special teams. So he's not necessarily a returner, but I like his energy. So I would personally put Quantrez. I would give him a spot. But if it's up to Kyle, I think it might come down to Oliver or Deshaun Jameson. And the thing is, Oliver has not been great at all, but he has a lot of experience, and I think that call is going to be made by Wilkes, and Wilkes brought in Oliver, and that might be enough for Oliver to make it. So we'll see. Who do you guys have? Let me ask you guys who would you put out of those three to make the roster? Isaiah Oliver, Deshaun Jameson, Quantrez Knight. I'm assuming the popular answer is going to be Deshaun Jameson because he does offer some returnability. But again, I like Deshaun Jameson. I think he has a lot of potential, but I'd still want to see a little bit more from Deshaun Jameson. So most of the chat saying Jameson or Oliver, which is ultimately how it's probably going to play out. Quantrez Knight is definitely going to clear waivers, and so that's the other way you have to think about it. Is Knight is probably got a really good shot at swinging back around at the practice squad. Maybe not so much for Isaiah Oliver because he has been a starter in this league, and someone might swoop him. So that's another thing to think about. If I had to put it up to Kyle, I would say Oliver's making it. If this is Kyle's five cornerbacks, I'm gonna say he's gonna keep Ward, Lenore, Oliver, Womack, Thomas, Luter on PUP, Quantrez Knight, and Jameson to the practice squad. That's how I think Kyle does it, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. So this one, linebacker, I had to make an adjustment here. So going back to my preseason 53-man roster projection, I had 6 cornerbacks and 5 linebackers. I had the 49ers trading one of the linebackers, but I had to make an adjustment. I had to go 6 linebackers, 5 cornerbacks. Again, a big help is Darrell Luter being on PUP. So he's effectively the 6th cornerback that doesn't count against the final roster, the final 53. So that's why I made that decision. So I decided I got to keep 6 linebackers. And the linebackers that I'm keeping are going to be Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Oren Burks, D. Winters, Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. Who's the last kicker I'm going to keep? You got Jalen Graham, Curtis Robinson, and Marcelino McCrary Ball. Boy, is this a tough decision. Is this a tough decision or what? I think DFF has played phenomenally this preseason. He's so assignment sound, and he's a great special teamer, and he's a great locker room guy. DFF, I had the 49ers trading him. I think they like him too much, and he played really well this preseason. So I'm keeping DFF. I'm not trading him anymore. I felt terrible trading him in the first place. So I rescind my trade, and DFF makes the roster. Oren Burks is going to make the roster. They really like Oren Burks. I like Oren Burks. D. Winters, obviously the draft pick. And I had Marcelino McCrary Ball making it. I don't think Marcelino did enough. I don't think Marcelino did enough to edge out Jalen Graham. So my 6th linebacker is Jalen Graham. It was really hard, man. We've been really high on Marcelino coming into this year. I really thought Marcelino was going to take a massive leap, make the roster. But Jalen Graham has shown too much promise for where he was drafted. DFF has played too well. D. Winters is the highest draft pick of them all. They're going to keep him. He shows some really nice sideline to sideline speed. So I had to cut Marcelino and Curtis Robinson. It's a hard decision, man. Really hard decision. But that's how I have it. So I have Jalen Graham making it. And we'll see. We'll see. So the 49ers did this last year. The 49ers did this last year. Where they cut Marcelino. I think Marcelino had a much better preseason last year than this year. So, and they got him back on the practice squad. So we'll see. But again, I do not envy the decisions that will be made with this linebacker room. We got Marcelino's definitely worthy of making this roster. I'm still a big Marcelino McCrary Ball guy, but Jalen Graham, I think, showed a little too much. You know, I didn't have Jalen making it. I thought Jalen was going to get cut. But even though Jalen kind of cooled off the last 2 preseason games, he still has some talent that you could develop. And I like him enough. So those are my 6. We'll see ultimately what happens. But those are the guys that I got. Defensive line, I got 10 defensive linemen. No surprises with Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave. The 49ers are going to keep Javon Kinlaw. I really think they like him too much, and he seems to be healthy still. So I think they're going to keep Javon Kinlaw. Kevin Givens is a lock. Drake Jackson is a lock. They're going to keep Robert Beal. Cleveland Farrell is damn near the starter across from Nick Bosa whenever we pay him and decide to pay him. And this is where it gets a little dicey. So these are the remaining. So I have 2 more spots left. 2 more spots left. These are the remaining defensive linemen. Spencer Wagee, Marlon Davidson, Alex Barrett, Daryl Johnson's on IR. He's gone. Austin Bryant, Kalia Davis, T.Y. McGill, Kerry Hyder. You got the 2 newcomers that they brought in. Those guys are gone. So you got 2 spots for all those guys. Obviously, Kalia Davis was a 6th-round draft pick. So that could show for something. This guy, I think, has to make the roster. T.Y. McGill has to make this roster. Has to. When I put on the Denver tape, he was all over the place. And guess what? He did it in real games last year. So, T.Y. McGill is making this roster. So, I got T.Y. making it. And I really feel confident that he's going to make it. I don't feel like I'm going out on a limb saying that McGill is going to make it. So I really do think that it becomes a really tough decision between Kerry Hyder, Kalia Davis, Alex Barrett, who I think Alex Barrett has some nice versatility, can play inside out. Marlon Davidson has had some flash plays, but he's also had some not so great plays. Austin Bryant was intriguing to me in training camp, but when you watch him in game action, he just doesn't feel he's at best a situational pass rusher at best. And then you got Spencer Wagee. So I think Spencer Wagee will make it around to the practice squad. So I like Spencer. I think he's a great practice squad candidate. I think he goes to the practice squad. Marlon Davidson, who's shown some promise. He's going to be a practice squad guy. Austin Bryant, I think he's going to be a practice squad guy. So for the last spot, it's really coming down to Kerry Hyder, Kalia Davis, Alex Barrett. So for the 10th spot for the defensive line, I got Kerry Hyder, who is a inside out. I kind of have a more of a interior guy, but he can play big end, defensive end. So Kerry Hyder has some versatility. He had a pretty good camp. He's been decent. He's been up there in the rotation. Kalia Davis so far right now, the only thing that I really have going for Kalia Davis is where he was drafted. I haven't seen anything from Kalia Davis yet to really kind of jump over even Alex Barrett. So I'd actually cut Kalia Davis. I don't know if the 49ers will do that, but based on what Davis has done, I don't think that he's put anything on tape and you could bring him back to the practice squad. I think that's really what it would come down to. I still think Kalia has a solid upside, and I do think he could be potentially a guy, but he was hurt for most of training camp. He was hurt all last year. No one's got any tape on him. I would be shocked to see anyone put a claim in for him. So I think he would be able to make it back to the practice squad, and he could be a guy that you ultimately elevate. So to me, the last spot really comes down to Alex Barrett and Kerry Hyder. And that's for me. I think I might take Alex Barrett. I like Alex Barrett. I really like Alex Barrett and the training camp that he had. But if I would have to say, what do I think Kyle does? I think he keeps Kerry Hyder. So the 10 defensive linemen that I think Kyle Shanahan will keep: Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave, Javon Kinlaw, Kevin Givens, Drake Jackson, Robert Beal, Cleveland Ferrell, Kerry Hyder, T.Y. McGill, Kalia Davis, Alex Barrett, Spencer Wagee, Marlon Davidson, Austin Bryant, all prime practice squad candidates. So that's how I have it shaken out. So we'll see. We'll see. That's going to be another fascinating spot. Who's going to be the last guy to make it on the 53? So that's our defense. So as I said, 10 defensive linemen, 6 linebackers, 5 cornerbacks with Darrell Luter on PUP, 4 safeties, question mark kicker, Mitch and Tabor. So that's what my defense looks like. Let's get into the offense. This is this is going to be a Kyle Shanahan 53 versus my 53. I don't think Kyle's going to do what I would do. So Trent, obviously, Banks, Brendel, Burford, Colton, locks. All 5 of those guys locks. Jonathan Feliciano is a lock. He is our interior swing guy. So Feliciano's a lock. And then this is where it's up for debate. There's 2 more spots. There's 2 more spots on the offensive line, and where are you going with it? So what I think the 49ers will do is I think they're going to keep Jalen Moore and they're going to keep Nick Zakelj. Nick Zakelj definitely struggled in that in training camp, in preseason. But I think they want to see it through with Nick. So I think that they will put Nick Zakelj on the final 53. We'll see. But again, that is what I think Kyle does. If I had to do it, I would probably go Jonathan Feliciano. I would probably go Leroy Watson and Il Manning. Now that's a little scary too, because you got an undrafted free agent, Il Manning, who profiles best at guard. He's obviously done phenomenal at left tackle, so he can be to me, Ilm would be the perfect kind of Brunskill replacement. A guy that can play tackle, guard, and center eventually. So if it were up to me, I'm keeping Ilm Manning. He's making the final 53. I'm not letting him get out the door. Because although he's very similar to Jason Poe in regards to stature, Jason Poe is locked in at guard with a little bit of center capabilities. He can't play tackle. So the fact that Ilm Manning could probably play tackle in a pinch is a huge asset to me. So I would be Ilm would be making my final. He would. He would be making it. I've seen enough. Leroy Watson, I like his frame. I like his size. I like the way he moves. He's raw, but considering how raw he is, I do think he has some upside. So I'd much rather take the upside of Leroy Watson easily over Matt Pryor. I don't think Matt Pryor is that good at all. He's very average. I mean, he could obviously play in a pinch, but he's very average to me. And, maybe you could probably bring him back around to the practice squad. I'm not sure anyone is, clearing roster spots for Matt Pryor. So, and with Jalen Moore, I don't know. I don't know if it's ever going to click for Jalen. Obviously, I haven't watched the tape. I haven't seen if the tape has come out yet. So I haven't watched the tape yet. So he might have had a better game, but we'll see. Again, I would lean more on upside, which is a little bit more dangerous because you're leaning on more raw offensive linemen, opposed to guys who have a little bit more skin in the game in regards to experience. But again, if I had to say Kyle Shanahan, feels like Kyle Shanahan's going to keep Jalen Moore. They really like Nick Zakelj. So, but they have been open about Nick Zakelj's struggles so far. Do they make that switch to go Ilm over Nick? Hey, I like Nick as well, but Ilm's ability to play tackle is the difference maker. So that's why I'm keeping Ilm as best I could, because again, he could potentially start at left tackle, but he could also play center guard, and that versatility, being the last guy, is huge. So we'll see. We'll see what the 49ers ultimately do with those last two spots. I have what I would do. I have what I think the 49ers will do. I think those are differentiating opinions. I think Joey Fisher is a guy. I've been paying attention to Joey, and there's a lot of hype about Joey coming into this offseason, with his highlights and stuff like that. I think Joey Fisher, give him a year or two. I think Joey Fisher could be a guy. So I'm keeping Joey Fisher. He's probably not going to make the final, but I'm keeping him on the practice squad, and I'm doing whatever I can to develop Joey Fisher because he moves really well. He has a physical mentality. Once he gets his, you'll see Joey Fisher grow in year two. So I'm keeping Joey Fisher on the practice squad for sure. Bringing Jason Poe back to the practice squad. Luciano, I'd bring Luciano to the practice squad. Of course, Leroy Watson to the practice squad. Keith Ishmael has been just kind of he's been okay. I haven't loved him. I haven't loved him all that much. So we'll see. He could be a practice squad guy as well. I like a lot of these guys as developmental talents, like Luciano, Fisher, Poe, Leroy Watson. Those guys have some upside. Like Joey Fisher has, I would say he has starting upside, potentially as a guard in this league one day. Ilm Manning has some starting upside. Most likely is going to come at guard, but he has some starting upside, and Leroy Watson has starting upside. So I like these guys where they're at developmentally. So that's going to be very interesting to see what the 49ers value more. Guys that they think are better right now, which might be guys like Matt Pryor. I think they like Matt Pryor. I think they like Jalen Moore, and I think they like Nick Sakel. So we'll see. They've been pretty quiet on Ilm, so that kind of tells me that they'll probably try to sneak Ilm onto the practice squad. But I would not be surprised to see someone snatch Ilm up if they tried to put him on the active. So, or try to put him on the practice squad. So, if I can see what Ilm does, I would imagine other NFL teams can see the technical ability that he has. And if you need that last guy on the O line, kind of a swing offensive lineman that could play all 5 spots potentially, then that's where Ilm provides value, is that his position versatility could be valuable to another team. So that's something you got to keep in mind when they make this decision. So we'll see. Wide receiver is another interesting position because you got Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and Jawan Jennings. Those guys are locks. My second center is Jonathan Feliciano. He's my primary backup guard center. So you got 3 locks, and you got 2 injured. So you got Danny Gray hurt, Ray McCloud hurt, and we know Ronnie Bell's making this roster. So this all, I've been saying it all off season. The wide receivers and tight ends go hand in hand with how they impact each other. And we got the update today about, I missed your super chat. Sorry about that. New fourth for La'el Collins at right tackle. I would do that in a heartbeat. I would do that for sure. For sure. I don't know why La'el hasn't panned out with the Bengals, but boy, can he move. And he kicked myself out my own live. All right, I'm back. That was an accident. I do think that La'el would be nice. I want to see how. I think La'el's got some Ilm Manning to him. La'el, I think, is like 6'2" as well. I just want to double check. He is 322 pounds. How tall are you, my guy? Nah, he's 6'4". I thought he was shorter than that. I thought he was like 6'2", short king. He's 30 though. He's kind of up there. So, I don't know, 4th round, maybe 5th round. Maybe. We'll see. 49ers have 11 draft picks now. So this is the thing, is I don't think they're going to put Danny Gray on IR. I don't think they're going to put Ray McCloud on IR before the season starts. They might be post 53-man roster IR candidates, meaning they are eligible to return off short-term IR. So I have the 49ers keeping 6 wide receivers, which has a direct impact on how many tight ends they keep. So I agree. Danny Gray has not done a single thing, but they like Danny Gray. And Danny Gray had a pretty solid training camp. So because I was at training camp, I was able to see how Danny Gray has progressed and how he's gotten better, winning over the middle, winning on deep comebacks. Of course, his speed is evident. Um, Guys, when I tell you there was multiple days where Danny Gray was running wide open down the field, and it was one of the quarterbacks. It was either Sam Darnold or Trey Lance or Brandon Allen didn't throw him the football. There's multiple times where he is downfield walking in for 6 if they just look at him and they throw him the football. So he's got real speed. The speed is there, and he definitely has upside. So they're going to keep Danny Gray. Ray McLeod is their number one returner. So I think same thing goes for him. I think he has the best shot of making the final 53 and then placed on IR. So this is how I have it. Ronnie Bell is going to make the final 53. They're going to keep 6 wide receivers. Ronnie Bell is going to make it. He's going to be your 6th guy. And then they're going to take Willie Snead, Chris Conley, Tay Martin, and Isaiah Winstead, and they're going to put those guys on they're going to put those guys on the practice squad. So that's how I see it. And then they're going to keep 3 tight ends. I've been saying all offseason they're going to keep 4. And this was before the Latu news. My thought was that they haven't been really showcasing Willis because they've been trying to sneak Braden Willis onto the practice squad. So that's my tinfoil hat theory of why we have seen barely any Braden Willis in training camp, in the preseason, because it wasn't even close. Braden Willis was the best rookie tight end in training camp. So how I viewing it is that they were kind of hiding Braden Willis a little bit in preseason, because I think they were of the mindset that they were going to have to keep 6 wide receivers and they could only keep 3 tight ends, and it was going to be Kittle, Latu, and Warner. So Warner's your tight end too. That was evident yesterday when the starters were out there. It was Kittle and Warner on the field at the same time, which is exactly what I've been saying all year. I've been saying Warner's going to make this roster, and I still believe that's going to be the case. So it's Kittle, Warner. Before it was Latu that I had making the roster, but now that is in jeopardy. So, but I do think the 49ers find themselves in a situation where they got to keep 3. So does it become Kittle, Warner, Willis, Latu on IR for a redshirt year? Or is it Kittle, Latu, Warner make the final 53, then you cut Willis, but then you put Latu on IR, and then you bring up Willis in that role? That is the roster hoops that these guys have to jump through. Is they got to figure out and pray to the football gods that if they're going to have to try to do one of these maneuvers, that no one swoops the guy that they're trying to swing back around to the active after they place a potential player on short-term IR. So there's multiple hoops that this regime is going to have to jump through just to get guys on the roster because of injury. So there's going to be some interesting moves made, in my opinion, for these guys. Mark says Bosa reserved, did not show, not on 53. Might 49ers use that spot to keep another player and then sign Bosa a few days later? No, I don't know. I mean, that's actually not a terrible thought process, because if he doesn't count, if he's designated as a holdout, and I'm not positive if that counts against the 53 or not. But if it does, and if he remains on this list and it doesn't count, against the 53, that might be a Galaxy Brain move in order to keep another guy, then revert him to IR, then sign Bosa. That could be a Galaxy Brain move to ensure you don't lose one player that you don't want to lose. So that's actually not a bad thought process. I actually never thought about that, and I'm not positive that him being on the holdout list means he's not counting against the final 53. But if that is the case, and they're really concerned about losing out on someone because they have to get guys to the active before placing them to IR, that could be a Galaxy Brain move that they have that little piece to play with. So, Mark, that's actually not a bad idea. It's actually not a bad idea. So I think they have until Tuesday, right? I think they have until Tuesday before they got to finalize the 53. So if Bosa doesn't count against the active, then they get these guys on active, then they place them on IR, then they sign Bosa. That could be a workaround for one of those. That's actually not a bad idea. Obviously means Bosa's holdout continues, but it's not a bad workaround. So I have the 49ers keeping 3 tight ends and 6 wide receivers, which is a dramatic change of what I've been saying all year. But the Danny Gray, Ray McLeod injury and the emergence of Ronnie Bell makes it really, really difficult to keep 4 tight ends, which is why I don't think Willis played that much in the preseason. And I think they're trying to sneak him through to the practice squad. But Latu's injury is interesting timing, and we'll see. We'll see. Man, this 53-man roster breakdown is going to be fascinating with all these additional kicker things happening. And obviously, to round it out, we got 5 running backs / fullbacks: CMC, Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, TDP, and of course, Kyle Juszczyk. Jack Coletto to the practice squad. And then 3 quarterbacks: Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold, Brandon Allen. I was playing with the idea of cutting Brandon Allen because I really don't think Brandon Allen is all that exciting of a player. However, because of the pretty pitiful play of the Bengals backups while Joe Burrow's been out, and the fact that Brandon Allen was Joe Burrow's backup last year, I do think there's a world that exists where the Bengals, if the 49ers cut Brandon Allen, the Bengals will pick up Brandon Allen. So I think that is going to stop any kind of decision that the 49ers have in regards to maybe keeping 2 quarterbacks. They're going to keep 3. Brandon Allen's going to make it because they don't want Brandon Allen to go to the Bengals potentially. So that's how I see it. 3 quarterbacks, 5 running backs, 3 tight ends, 6 wide receivers, 8 offensive linemen, 10 defensive linemen, 6 linebackers, 5 cornerbacks, and 4 safeties, ? 3 specialists. So there's a lot of unknowns at kicker, big decisions at cornerback, the final cornerback spot, big decisions with the final defensive tackle spot, big decisions with your swing tackle and primary backup offensive linemen outside of Feliciano, big decision with wide receiver and tight end. So we're going to see. We're going to see how it all plays out. But my goodness, this team is going to be crazy. Roster cut down day is going to be entertaining to see who ultimately makes it. I don't think there was really a huge Jordan Mason style rise outside of, like, let's say maybe Il Manning that could push for a final. Deshaun Jameson potentially. But yeah. So there's some questions. There's some questions to be answered with this final roster breakout. So never a dull moment as a 49er fan. Even the final roster has some drama to it. Like even the final roster has drama to it. What are they going to do with the kicker? What are they going to do at tight end? What are they doing with the wide receivers? There's injuries. Oh man, we still don't have Bosa. Maybe that Bosa card is something that they could use. But why did we cut Laybourne? Give me him over TDP. Laybourne actually played pretty nice. I would have to imagine, again, maybe it's something that we didn't see on field. Maybe it was an off field thing. I don't know. I don't know why they cut him. He played pretty decently in training camp to at least get a shot in a preseason game. So typically when stuff like that happens, there's maybe some off-field locker room dynamic stuff that he didn't jive, maybe didn't fit with the group. Because the 49ers are pretty quick. Kittle's talked about it all the time. He's like, the 49ers are really good at getting rid of knuckleheads really early. Now, not saying that's why, but again, based on what I saw in training camp, he looked pretty decent. So the fact that he didn't get a shot in preseason, so we'll see. Mason should be RB2. I'm pretty sure he's locked in at RB2, even with the fumble. I still think he's locked in pretty much at RB2. I mean, we'll see when Elijah Mitchell gets back, man. Elijah Mitchell is just hurt all the time. He's just hurt all the time. He's not available. So, I mean, I would say, like, if Mason didn't fumble, I would have said he pretty much locked up that RB2 job, but we'll see. He also had some good blocks and pass protection, by the way. So, why not keep Dwelley? Because unfortunately, Dwelley's not very good. Because in this scheme, you have to be a blocker, and I don't know what happened to Dwelley's blocking. I thought Dwelley, when he was, still like pretty fresh off being an undrafted free agent, I think out of SDSU, he showed that he was a pretty solid blocker. He's always had good hands. Like, his hands have always been one of his best traits. He's a good, pretty. He's not a fat, like, he doesn't have speed, but he knows how to get open. He knows how to get open and catch the football. But boy, does he struggle with blocking. Like, I've talked about this before. I think if Kittle, like, I look at that Arizona game against with Trey Lance's first start, I put a big emphasis on the reason why they lost that game is because of Ross Dwelley. Like, I think because Ross Dwelly just absolutely got obliterated um, on a quarterback dive with Trey Lance, where he wasn't able to kick out a linebacker. It would have been a walk-in touchdown if it was Kittle on that play. That then parlayed into Trey Lance having to go head on with two Arizona defenders at the goal line and getting stuffed. Dwelly missed like 5 crucial blocks in that game, and it's like burned into my brain. And then after that game, he got benched for Warner, and we haven't seen Dwelly since. So the last time we saw Dwelly play a lot of snaps was that Arizona game against or with Trey Lance's first start, and he missed multiple touchdown blocks that changed the dynamic of the game and arguably changed the dynamic of Trey Lance's career. Isn't that crazy? Because today, obviously, Trey Lance isn't on this team. So isn't that crazy to kind of think about? Like, if George Kittle plays that game, I believe 100% they win that game because George makes those blocks and they score those touchdowns. Isn't that crazy? And then I also think Trey doesn't suffer the knee sprain. So Trey wins his first game against Arizona, doesn't get hurt, starts the next week against the Colts. I've talked about this butterfly effect like insane. And I look at Dwelly for being it's not all on Dwelly. It's like he didn't single-handedly lose the game, but there was some big time plays where he missed some crucial blocks that if he just got his hat in the right spot, had proper technique, did what he needed to do, it would have been a touchdown. Trey playing with George Kittle. Dude, this week feels like a blur to me. Like, again, it was so weird because I was driving into the stadium and then Trey got traded, and I just was like, it was weird. It's super weird, man. It's still weird. Like, Trey just got traded yesterday. Like, Trey's not on this team anymore. It just feels like a blur. It feels like a complete just whirlwind. It's crazy. So, anyways, crazy scenario, but entertaining. Number one reality show in all the land. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. A lot of bad vibes. You know, I feel like I've perceived the 49ers having some pretty bad vibes heading into the year. I thought it was weird when they brought back Jimmy. I thought that was kind of bad vibes. But this team somehow figures out a way. They figure out a way to get it done. So I'm not going to panic just yet. I'm not going to panic. And again, this is about the time of the year where I start to tell everyone that the first 4 weeks of the year are preseason for the starters. Okay? So, week 1 against the Steelers, week 2 against Rams, week 3 against the Giants, week 4 versus Cardinals. It's basically the preseason for the starters. So, expect sloppiness. Expect, again, this team has been notorious for slow starts. Kind of feels like they might be gearing up for another slow start, but you never know. September is preseason for the starters. So, and it's been super relative to the 49ers these last couple years, outside the 2019 season where they won, what was it, 8 or 9 games in a row? So outside of that, the 49ers have definitely looked like it's been preseason for them in September. So we'll see. We'll see. Does it look like September? Does that look like preseason for the starters? Could be. Could be. You don't want to start slow with Pitt. Pitt's a machine. Pitt's a machine, and they're at home. There's a lot of buzz around Pittsburgh, and rightfully so. So that's not a cakewalk. It's a 10 a.m. start. It's not a cakewalk by any stretch of the imagination. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, Pitt's going to be prepared, and Pitt will have had all year to prepare. And Mike Tomlin's a good coach, and he's going to have his team ready to go. So we'll see. We'll see. They lost against Jimmy in 2019 at home. Stop it. Do you know who their quarterback was? I think they were trotting out rookie Mason Rudolph in that game. So, and it was at our home, and that was an ugly game. It was disgustingly ugly. The 49ers did absolutely nothing that game until Jimmy went and marched down on that last drive, and then he threw the game winner to Dante Pettis. Other than that, it was a gross game. So they're completely different teams. 2019 is a lifetime ago. Lifetime ago. The number one weapons on Pittsburgh weren't on the team in 2019. So I don't know what the comparison is. Pickett, Pickens, Najee, none of those guys were on the roster. So it's going to be an interesting one, to say the least. But hey, we'll do a proper breakdown of that game and all that good stuff. But that's my roster projection for today. Really, just a lot of questions. Just a lot of questions going down up and down this roster. Multiple injuries. You got injuries to the tight end room, injuries to the wide receiver room, injuries to the kicker room. Multiple questions. Multiple questions. The 49ers got some hoops to jump through. So we're going to see. But shout out to everyone who tapped in for the live. Appreciate you guys tapping in for the roster breakdown. Obviously, it was a lot heavily weighted with injury updates at the beginning of it. But appreciate you guys, as always, tapping in. Smash that like button if you haven't already. The 49ers got some moves to make. I think the deadline is on Tuesday. So they got some moves to make and some decisions to ponder. So we'll see. Shout out to all you guys. Appreciate you. Shout out to SDS. I'm out of here for now. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it.